All right. The room is open. You know what this is. Taking you back to a gentler time, the 1990s. When was it simpler or was it more complicated?
Definitely simpler. Definitely simpler.
All right, let me explain what we're doing today. Welcome everybody to What's Wrong with Richard Rushfield. My daily chat with the most interesting people in the world about what they're up to, what they're doing, what they think of things. So today was kind of an emergency show that we put together. The show is still new, and mostly we're doing kind of biographical talks, but this is a very focused conversation we're going to have. My good friend Rebecca Woolf was on the show just, what was it, 2-3 weeks ago?
Yeah. Yep.
So normally there'd be some breathing room between I hope you'll be a regular guest here, but normally we'd have a little time to just sort of take stock of what's happened and reflect and build up new things. But you wrote a essay this week on your own Substack, The Braid, which everyone subscribe to if you're not already, about an issue that's really important to me and perhaps the most important issue in our culture. Kind of the
definitely number one.
It's kind of the only. I'm trying not to quote that Primo Levi quote that the Holocaust is the only is it Primo Levi that the Holocaust is the only issue for serious people to discuss. I don't want to compare a TV drama to a teenage drama to the Holocaust, but really, when we're talking about our culture, like it kind of all starts with My So-Called Life, and if you're not grappling with that, I really don't know what you're talking about and how you understand anything that came after, particularly in the journey of Generation X, which is the most important generation of the world. So do we need to explain what My So-Called Life is for people who might not be versed for it?
I feel like if people are joining us today, they should know about it. And if they don't, they're about to find out. But I'll just do like my so-called life for me was like to your point, the most important cultural moment of my adolescence and ever since, frankly. No show has compared for me. No show has been more influential. I've watched every episode 4,000 times. I've gone as Jordan Catalano for Halloween. I've referenced this show in everything I've ever written, probably since I was 14 years old. I think the show came out in 94, correct? I was 13.
I think so, yeah.
The show came out like during the time in my life where like there was every adolescent milestone and it was happening simultaneously. Yeah. So anytime Angela Chase had made out with Jordan, I had this, it was such a mirror to my experience. So I don't even know how to separate my own adolescence from the show. It's very.
Where does Angela end and Rebecca begin is the question.
As we were discussing before, I think I started my teen years as Angela and then was basically radicalized into becoming Rayanne, which I think.
Okay. So we have to get into all this about who everybody really is there, and I think I've got to do some soul searching there myself on that question. But so just to set it up though, this was in 1994. When it was before you really had cable show. MTV existed, but you didn't have scripted shows on cable. You had 3 networks or 4 by that time, and they still did very traditional shows. And My So-Called Life was at the very beginning, along with 30-something and maybe the Stephen Bochco shows, of doing sort of TV drama that was much more realistic and much deeper than what you had gone before, which Dallas or Dynasty or what have you. And it focused on the life of a group of teenagers at this one high school who were all sort of finding themselves in various ways. At the time, it got a mere 10 million viewers a week, which was considered for ABC a kind of not a disaster, but disappointing. ABC today, that would make it today if you had a show, a TV drama with that introduced a bunch of teenagers who became the hottest things in the culture and got 10 million viewers a week, that would be all anybody would be talking about every set. It would be the New York Times and Vulture and the New Yorker would write so many articles about it, would have like a team of reporters on it around the clock. You would hear about nothing left. At the time, it was sort of disappointing. Mm-hmm. And the thing about it is it lasted one season. It left with this enormous cliffhanger for the characters, and it's kind of survived as a sort of perfect jewel box, because it really is like almost every line of that show is just perfect, and just you can take every line of that show works on like 8 different levels, and so it just exists as this perfect thing, and it really affected. So I have my theories. Can you tell? Let's start with your piece, and your piece was entitled "How the Locker Room Scene in My So-Called Life Made Fools of an Entire Generation of Yearning Women Who Learn to Tell Time with a Broken Clock." I'm going to read a couple paragraphs here from you. I know it's horrible to have your words quoted to you, but you wrote, "For my generation of women, the worship of shitty men was a genre unto itself. Jordan Catalano, played by Jared Leto in his first role, being our patron saint of broken clocks. Here was a boy that that was as dumb as rocks, a total dick, and sexually coercive, and yet there wasn't a teenage girl I knew who wasn't swooning. I was just like every other teenage girl whose happiness depended on a broken clock that was right twice a day, because there was a part of me that believed I could learn the art of clocksmithing. I could fix him." So talk to me about that. What was this appeal? Is it just was it just a matter of he invented negging, or what was the appeal of Jordan?
I think obviously the appeal of Jordan Catalano was that he was beautiful. Very much conventionally attractive, especially if there's anyone who I think is the face of 90s handsomeness, it's that character. Down from the wardrobe with the choker and the shearling. He played in a band. He drove an old car. It was he was written by a woman, obviously.
He didn't use a lot of words also.
Didn't use a lot of words, and when they came out, they weren't exactly eloquent. He sort of didn't have a personality at all, which I think for girls and women, there's an allure to that, because it means it's a fresh slate. I get to mold this clay, because he felt very malleable, because he was, he didn't really, there was no there. And I think there's an appeal to boys and men with no there, because you feel maybe you could bring him to life, right?
Yeah.
But I think,
the mistaken, the fallacy of maybe all society is that still waters always run deep.
Yes, exactly.
And that this quiet hides hidden depths rather than just an eternal void.
Totally. But it was, I think, specifically, and I wrote about the locker room scene specifically because I think even people who haven't seen the show are familiar with that scene.
So describe the scene to us. Okay, tell us what happens.
Yeah. So the episode is called Self-Esteem, which is an interesting title for that episode. I remember when I first was trying to figure out what what episode it was. I was like, I was like the boiler room episode, but it's called Self-Esteem. And basically what happens in this episode is that Angela Chase, who's played like Claire Danes, has had his thing for Jordan Catalano for the very beginning. He's like, he totally just, he gives her like, here and there a glance. Occasionally he will say something to her, but all in all, like he really doesn't acknowledge her. So when he does, it feels like she's just been chosen. And so what's happens really like from the beginning of the show and like really hits its sort of climax in this episode is that he kisses her and then he invites her to meet him in the boiler room. Sorry, this is major spoiler alert if you've never seen My So-Called Life. So he asked her to meet him in the boiler room. And so she does. And essentially he's hooking up with her, not telling his friends, doing it in private. She's trying to like construct her own narrative around this where she's like, oh, but he really likes me, even though he doesn't want to be seen with me in public, even though he doesn't
acknowledge her in public.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't acknowledge her in public. In fact, she sort of invites herself, but like convinces herself that he's invited her to see Buffalo Tom play at Pike Street. She shows up. She says hi to him. He literally is like, you're crowding me. He's like playing pool and he's like, you're crowding me. And she's devastated. And everyone is devastated. And Rayanne Graff, of course, the only one with any sense in the show. Well, that's not true. Ricky too. Goes up to him and she's like, what the fuck? Why are you pretending like you don't like her? She actually says, you like her. That's her line. Would it kill you to admit it? Anyway, so he kind of looks at her, has a thought in his head. And then
a quarter of a light bulb goes on.
Yeah. You can tell that like something is happening in there, like for a second. And then, we cut back to school. He invites her to meet him at the boiler room again. She goes. And I think that moment, and like, this is sort of what I was writing about too, because that exact same thing happened to me. The boy that I was hooking up with in 7th grade or 8th grade was older, and at school he ignored me, and then he would ignore me in school, and then he would call me and see if I wanted to like do what we did yesterday and invite me to come over again, and I would go. And that feeling of like knowing you're being used, but you're not, you're so into this person that like you're willing to tell yourself a different story. I think for a lot of teenage girls, especially those of us who came of age in the 90s, that was like that was just like how it was. And I think we were all like helping each other justify it. And there's a moment there finally where she basically is like, why did you tell me to come here? You're ignoring me. You can't even spell my name correctly, right? She's like, I spell my name with one L. He spells her name wrong. And then she's like, admit that this happened, admitted that we existed, that this was a thing. And then he just sort of looks at her, maybe has another thought, the second thought of the season. And then she leaves. And it's this like really amazing moment where it's like, fucking finally, she's taking her power back by being like, fuck this, I'm not going to meet you anymore.
There's a great line. There's many sites that just have of My So-Called Life quotes, and one I really liked was him telling her, you're a lot, and she's like, we've only exchanged like 8 words.
Totally. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and so then. Right. And then she's going to go take her test, right? She's going to take her geometry review because she's failing geometry because this guy's distracted her because, that she's prioritized the very little attention he's given her to like her actual future, which again, we've all been there. And then, in the final scene, which is, sort of the lead up and what I was referencing in that post, they're in the locker room. The entire cast of characters is there. Buffalo Tom, Late at Night comes on, the song that was playing at Pike Street when he pretended she didn't exist. The music comes on, it's slow motion, Rayanne and Ricky are like eating their candy necklace. She's leaning against her locker. Brian Krakow's there, who of course is a whole other conversation. Yeah. And then we see Jordan Catalano lock eyes with her from across the locker room and then slow-mo walk towards her. And you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? And he walks up to her and he says, This is the moment. He says,
Yeah.
can we go somewhere?
The-
And that moment, which is sounds like nothing, felt like fucking everything
yeah.
to every girl watching, including Angela. And of course, she lights up and is like, yeah, of course.
And she just has this
He acknowledges
enormous.
her in the halls, and we all swoon like this is the most romantic gesture that's ever happened because he's been such a dick the whole time that it actually feels that way. And then as they're walking, he holds her hand. He takes her hand.
And she just lights up like the Chrysler building there. Like
The greatest moment in TV history, in my opinion, but also the worst because I really do think that was the moment where we all were like, oh, all we have to do is just give him another chance, and then he's going to do this romantic gesture. Then he's going to acknowledge me. Then he's going to treat me like a person, right? That was the sort of like, that's what I kind of got from it was like, oh my God, well, all I have to do is just like hang in there. And eventually he's going to realize that I'm amazing and he's going to want to, you know?
And you have the reactions of the different characters. You have Ricky and Rayanne. I'd say like happy for her, but with a knowledge that there will be a price to be paid somewhere.
I actually, it's so interesting because I know we talked about Sharon too, and we're going to have a whole conversation about Sharon.
Yes, we have to talk about Sharon.
But that's the one moment where Sharon's like the only person who's like, fuck this guy. I don't fucking know. You see it. She's like, don't forget your geometry review. Don't throw away your future for this dick, right? And the rest, and then Rayanne's kind of like, well, she already did. Like it's, and then Ricky's smiling. Like, oh, it's sweet.
And Brian Krakow is just like, this is so unfair.
Yeah, Brian Krakow's devastated because he's, of course, in love with her. And then that's the episode. And, you know, I mean, that episode, I think I've watched 300,000 times. I've studied it. I've like tried to, it's really lives. Like when my life flashes before my eyes on my deathbed, that scene will be in the montage for sure. But I think, you know, this whole idea of like, you know, broken clock is right twice a day. I think a lot of women, a lot of girls, and he wasn't the only character that was sort of this like loser, this beautiful loser that everyone was swooning over. I mean, that was sort of the archetype, the 90s archetype, but he was, I think, like the patron saint of all of it. And I think that sort of idea that like, okay, so a broken clock is right twice a day. Like can I be with this person for however many minutes are in the day, and then 2 of those minutes he's treating me well, and that's
so what is the thought there? Is it like those 2 minutes equal out the other 23 hours and 58 minutes, or like are you hoping like, okay, maybe I can get it to be right 3 times a day, or how?
I think you become like addicted to those 2 minutes. I think that like you learn again, like I think you learn that being miserable for X amount of, you know, 99% of the time, you can justify it for that 1% because it feels so good. It's like a drug, right? It's like it's worth it for that, you know, 2-minute high, knowing even that it's killing you. I mean, we're not really thinking. It's like more of a chemical reaction. But I do feel like the reaction to that scene, like if you really break it down, is like kind of devastating. The fact that so many girls, women, like even still, I mean, how many years ago is this? 20, 30, 35, 30.
Yeah.
32 years ago, 31, I don't know, a long time. I mean, I still get that same feeling watching it that I, you know, did when I was 13 or 14. I still feel it, and I'm so happy for her, and that's gross.
So what would you at this point in your life, you are a mother of a daughter who's older than Angela in that scene. Three daughters, yeah, sorry. If you could walk into that scene, stop time, and then just take Angela aside for a chat, what would you say to her, knowing what you say? I mean,
I would be like, go to your geometry review, which I feel like honestly has been I parent through that lens now.
And how are you different from Bess Armstrong when you say that? how are you not Bess Armstrong? With the Bess Armstrong played the mother character who was, kind of a very type A hyperachiever who the the who everyone I have to say, by the way, I'm sorry. The creator of the show, Winnie Holtzman herself, is here. Just said hello. Is here in the in the chat. We are honored and blessed to have you with us here, Rebecca. You okay?
I told Richard, I was like, if Winnie shows up, I'm going to start to cry.
You may
I'm such
cry.
A fan. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for the hat. Once again, wearing proudly. You just got an exo from her.
I saw him.
Let us proceed. So Bess Armstrong played the very type A mother who was always telling her, do your homework. What do you need this? You don't need, and why don't you just hang out with that nice Sharon girl? So how are you not her now?
Oh, I don't tell my kids to do their homework. I'm like I'm a type F mom. Like I'm not type A at all, but I'm very much about if you're gonna center men and boys in your life, it will keep you from your dreams, your hopes and dreams. I do definitely parent from like that. I parent as Angela, knowing now what she didn't know then. So I would be pissed if any of my daughters were giving up anything that could potentially like further for a boy. That's where my, I guess that's my only, the only thing I would share with Patty, because I think Patty was also skeptical of Jordan. Like she saw him, she got it, she knew. I'm skeptical in that way too.
Now, okay, so one thing I want to talk about here, I brought this up with you, as I talk with, clearly you see the world through Angela and Angela's cipher. So I feel that there are a lot of women who identify very much with Angela, but don't quite. And I'm not saying this about you, because I don't think this is true about you, but as a general statement, how much they are in fact Sharons. Mm-hmm. Rather, they're much more Sharons rather than Angela. What do you say to that? And what and Sharon and Brian Krakow are kind of the hapless, but they have their upsides too. So how do you feel about that?
Well, it's interesting because I think, like, if you look at My So-Called Life, like if Sharon was the main character or if like Rayanne was the main character, it's really interesting to think about like what kind of show it would be. Like, for example, the Boiler Room episode would not look the way it did if it was Sharon or if it was Angela, or if it was Rayanne. And I think obviously, Angela's caught between the Rayanne and the Sharon. She's this sort of like, Sharon represents like, her child self, her childhood, and Rayanne is like more of this like rebellious adolescence. And she's sort of straddling the line with both, which I really think that that was sort of the genius of the show, is I think most teenage girls really related with sort of being caught between like their familiar childhood experience, communities, whatever, and then like the future. I feel like everyone's sort of at that point, sort of the road sort of diverges. But I think Sharon, of course, was like this like annoying, she was almost maternal, parental, very by the book. And she sort of represented sort of what Angela was rebelling against. And no one wants to be the like goody two shoes, straight arrow. No one wants to be that girl. But to your point, I think a lot of girls are. But I think that it's always interesting, like how people see themselves, right? Like, I think it's interesting that everyone related to Angela. Yeah. Because I think even people who are Sharons understand what it feels like to be sort of caught between these two archetypes, these two selves, like, you know, the friend that you grew up with, that you're just friends with because you have like, you were in the same kindergarten class, and then the girl who like is exciting and makes you want to like, you know, burn everything down. And straddling that line feels very relatable, I think, to like all teenage girls. I mean, this is why the show is so fucking brilliant. Like, it, and truly, it's the only show that holds up. I've watched it, and now that I know that Winnie's here, I just want to like, I just only show that I watched with all my kids. Like, each one of them. I mean, I've watched it a million times on my own too, but like I've sat down and watched it like one on one with each one of my kids, and it's completely relatable now. Even, you know, it's completely stands the test of time. Like, it's not dated at all. Even though there's no technology in it, it still feels so modern. It's so loving to teenagers without being condescending, which I find most shows treat teenagers in a sort of subhuman way. Whereas I feel like My So-Called Life really respected them as individuals. Obviously, like Ricky, there was no gay characters, I think, on TV at the time. That were,
I mean, they're much wiser than the parents are.
Completely, yes. Which can I just say, I think is accurate across the board. I would trust a teenager more than an adult almost every time. I'd much like, teenagers are honest, they're real, they're fearless, they're rebellious, they're not, they haven't been, you know, manipulated to, you know, think that they aren't. I don't know. I find that teenagers typically know more than we do in a lot of ways.
Well, they're the only people that you can't blame right now for the state of the world. So they are the rare blameless people. How, if you did set it today, though, it does, because it does feel timeless and everything. But if you did set it today, you would really have to deal with technology and social. That you couldn't do a high school show that just didn't have that now. So how would that change the journey for these kids, you think, as one who's seen people through high school lately?
I mean, I think the great thing about like, you'd have to really anger it in school because phones aren't allowed in school.
That's right.
And I think actually you could pull it off if the majority of the time it's in school, because, you know, or if they're like sneaking on their phones, but it's not like as much, right? They're not just sitting there on their phones bed rotting the whole time. I think that, you know, obviously all the different things, the bullying, which happens on campus, would be like cyberbullying, you know, like but honestly, like the themes are so similar. There's like themes about gun violence. There's themes about, you know, abuse, coercion. I mean, all the themes are the same. It's just, you know, they're just, and I think that's the thing. It's like, you look back on that show and you're like, wow, everything's so different, but everything's actually not as different as we think it is. Like, I think that, sorry, go ahead.
No, I think it's very true, but I think it leads me to one character who the one character I think would have been really affected by this is actually Brian Krakow, who I think would probably have like not left his house or had he would be so deeply up into his phones and games that like he would not know how to like even wave at a person in this day and age. I think he would just be.
That's right.
He would just gone full incel, or nascent incel. But that brings me to I wrote an essay a while back about I think the cliffhanger of the show, where at the end of sorry for the spoiler here, if you don't know, the show was still great even if I ruined this for you. Is the season ends, she gets into that Jordan comes and picks her up. Where are they going that night? So
I don't.
I'm not sure, but Jordan comes and picks her up, and she gets in the car with Jordan which is an enormous triumph for her, and Brian Krakow, with whom she's had a real rapprochement lately that has given her some hope.
Mm.
Watches as they drive, and she gives Brian a look of like, it's kind of like, I'm sorry. How would you describe the look that she gives Brian as she?
I think she's like acknowledged. I think that she's acknowledges that like she knows. Like she's kind of acting like she doesn't know that he's in love with her. Like she's obviously taking advantage of the fact that he is, but she's pretending sort of to him that like she doesn't see it or doesn't get it. And I think there's the like I think she's acknowledging that there's that he cares about her and also acknowledging that she cares about him too. It's just not their time. I don't know. It sort of always to me was like insinuated that like maybe down the line something will happen.
This is the thing. This is I think the tragedy for a generation of nerds.
Yeah, yeah.
That were, I think that look gave them hope that at some point Brian and Angela end up together when she realizes what a horrible mistake she made with going off with Jordan, that she will come back to Brian and that there is a happy ending for them lying there. And
that was Brian Krakow's like her holding his hand in the halls moment. Yes. Right? Like those were yes.
But it was false because she's never going to end up with Brian in any version of any way, like anywhere it leads, not at their 20-year reunion, not anywhere. And he needs to figure out some other way to frame his life or stop being such a nerd and like develop some like social skills that aren't just totally abrasive and all that. So that I feel like a second season would have clarified that.
Do you feel like when you watched it, who did you identify with, and did you feel did that moment hit you in a way that the Jordan handheld? Like, was that? I don't know.
So this is in asking who I am. So this is I would frankly like to go back and like it's kind of like an election where you're like these are our, I would like to go back and have some more joy, but forced to choose. The horror, I think for a young man in my position is to think that you might be a Brian Krakow. That is the fate that you and of course, just like, I mean, just as everyone was in love with Jordan, given a choice, what young man wouldn't choose to be Jordan? But I think by age 20, I certainly knew that was not where my road lie. I would like to claim that Ricky speaks for me.
Okay.
Can I? But yeah. You tell me if I'm allowed to do that.
Yeah. For sure.
Okay. Then I will take Team Ricky then.
We were talking about this earlier, but I definitely felt. I think also in the show I identified with Angela, but I definitely like also thought I was a Rayanne, or at least thought I wanted to eventually like get to the point where I could say I was Rayanne, and I was obsessed with that character. And watching it now with my kids, like that, she's definitely like the favorite. They definitely aren't Angela's. I think that's the other thing. I think like they look at Angela, like I looked at Angela, like I was like, oh, this is like exactly how it is. And they look at Angela and they're like, this is pathetic. Like they're definitely like, they see that like the kind of stuff that we thought was like totally normalized in the 90s is not normalized for them. Like you do not treat girls that way, right? They see things in a far more evolved way, thank God. But Rayanne is always she's like the favorite because she's cool and she doesn't care, and like she's got great style, and she's funny and irreverent, and like no one can really fuck with her. And my
you have a story, I believe.
Yeah. So my full circle moment is
Yeah.
that my daughter, who is about to be a senior in high school, was in a short film that her friend wrote and was directing with Rayanne, with AJ Langer's son as her romantic interest. So
Wow. Oh.
it was like this full circle where I had to drop her off at AJ Langer's house.
Wow.
And I was like shaking because I was so nervous about it. And I mean, it's so funny. Like I don't really get starstruck, but this is like, again, like I got teary eyed when I saw that.
I mean, this is
This
sort of
is like,
primordial,
yeah,
formative.
it's like my inner teenage girl, like, is like, that's why I wore my overalls and everything. I was like, I'm going to, but I saw her across, I dropped my daughter off. I see her across the hall, like across the house, across the hall. It's my Jordan Catalana moment. I see her and I just started to cry and like I ran. I was like, I'm going to say hi to her. I couldn't do it. I literally dropped my daughter off and could not have gone out of there faster because I was so like overcome by this I've entered my like teenage, I don't even know, but like now she's a grown woman and I'm a grown woman and suddenly, and I have a teenage daughter and you have a teenage son and they're doing a scene together and couldn't even register.
Yeah, when the line between the show and reality is already when the show is so close to reality that it's already tenuous.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard. It's also hard to like, I mean, you especially like there's so much of my work and like how I identify is so wrapped up in my adolescence. Like I really still feel like I'm 14. And so it's also this moment where you're like, oh wait, I'm 45. I have a 21-year-old son. I have an 18, like my kids are older than these characters, but how is that possible? Because I'm still 15. Like how, so there's also this like, it's very existential and confusing. And yeah, I mean, I still very much identify with that time of my life, even though it's been 32 years since it happened.
Okay, we should probably we could actually talk about we were joking before. We could actually just sort of keep this chat open and
For the rest of our lives.
Yeah, and just like let everybody come and go and drop in and just have this a permanent standing my so-called life video chat where anyone can come and go. And that'd be very healing to spend a couple hours every day just talking about.
I mean, we should do like, I was saying this, I was like, we should do some sort of like live event where we have the show on and then like interview people. I'm like, I don't know. First of all, I had no idea that you were also as obsessed with the show as I was. So this is also new to me that you have, you have the hat.
You
have official set merch.
Well, was a gift, I will say, of our special guest, Winnie Holtman. So thank you very much for that. I love it. It's my prized possession. No, it always like, I mean, I remember I was a little older. How old was I in 1994? I don't know math. 20 or early 20s, but
Okay.
it was still like a lightning bolt to show. Like I don't think I watched a lot of television at that time because it just was so removed from anything in my life, and it was just like sort of like, wow, this is I know these people. This is real. This is and I had a good friend from the time who may be in the room here, who I would call Angela because of her thing, and she would make fun of me and tell me that I was the Brian Krakow of her life, which was not true at all. I was nothing like Brian Krakow. But no, it's a perfect show. Every teenager should watch it, and every teenager would love it if they could sit down and watch it. Even with the mohair and the Do your teens understand like why did people dress like that back then? Do they?
I mean, I think everyone like, and this is the thing. I don't know if your kids have this, but there's such '90s nostalgia for these kids,
Is
especially
there?
because it was like we were the last generation that went through high school without social media, without cell phones, without any of these things. So like, it's been so romanticized. I mean, I mean, they watch it and like I mean, the fashion is very. I mean, it's come back around for sure. And the music, like I mean, the music in My So-Called Life is unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
Like the incredible soundtrack. I know you were playing Everybody Hurts as
I mean
we,
that scene with. I mean, whenever I hear that song, I think back
yeah,
about that
same.
that
Yeah.
that scene. But it's no, it really it managed to capture its moment so well while being completely universal.
I was also going to say, the other song, when they're doing the fashion show, the mother-daughter fashion show,
Mm.
and it's, oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's right.
and that song just came on and I was like, oh, and I always, always, always think about the fashion show. And actually like, I had to like pull it up on YouTube to show my kids and was like, this scene. And that scene also, like, it's so funny too, watching it as a parent now, like watching it as a teenager and then watching it as a parent. And obviously like I get all emotional whenever there's like the mother-daughter moments and in ways that obviously I didn't when I was a teenager because like, ew. But that scene is like, the mother-daughter equivalent of the Jordan Angela hallway scene is the like Angela like rejecting her mother and then the sister fills in and then Angela's there like cheering her on. Anyway.
The okay, final question to wrap this up because Substack needs a room here, so we should have it. What so do you feel like you could tell Angela right now when he says let's go someplace to just say no, that's not enough. That's not don't listen to that. That's not good enough. Or do you feel like Angela, this is the journey that Angela and everyone has to go with, knowing for yourself what a journey with awful guys would follow from that?
I mean, I don't think Angela ever learns, right? Like she learns, but she doesn't really learn. I don't know if she ever will. I'm also talking about myself here.
Yeah.
If someone were to tell me like absolutely not, you shouldn't do that, I would have done it. So if anyone were to have stopped Angela, it would have only made her want to go with him more. But I definitely fantasize about him walking up to her, finally getting the guts to acknowledge that she's a person, walking up to her and her being like, fuck you. Like that is my fantasy for Angela and for every Angela who's ever existed on TV, off TV, in real life, as a fictional character, etc. That's what I want for all Angelas. Amen.
That's beautiful. Rebecca, this has been so we really worked through a lot here, I think.
Yeah,
And
thank you. Thank you so much for calling this emergency meeting.
Yeah. Well, we may have to have a part two. We'll probably think of a lot of things that we didn't even get to. So
yeah.
This might have to be a regular standing.
I love it. I'm so
get
in.
together. Thank you, everyone. Join us. Thank you more than anything anyone can say to the great Winnie Holzman. If you're still you gave us something that life changing, really, and it's and a perfect show. We'll be back with another guest here on What's Wrong, and Rebecca, we'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you, Richard.
Take care. Bye bye.